They say love is about connection, about showing up, reaching out, never giving up. But here's the contradiction. Sometimes the more you try to hold on, the faster love slips through your fingers. In the silent standoff of no contact, we're often told to wait, to wonder, to worry. But what if he's not just gone? What if he's choosing the same silence you are? Not to punish you, but to protect himself, to process, to pause. You want to fix it, to text, to explain your heart in 10 long paragraphs. But what you think is clarity may feel like pressure to him. Overexpanding becomes a wall, not a bridge. Chasing isn't connecting, it's running from your own stillness. And here's the deeper truth. Love doesn't always grow through more effort. Sometimes it deepens through restraint, through respecting space, through choosing dignity over desperation. So now you're left with the internal ache, the push-pull between wanting to reach out and needing to reclaim yourself. You're quiet, but are you calm? You're doing no contact, but is it from strength or fear? Who are you when you stop performing for someone else's attention? Silence can feel like rejection, but it can also be a return to your center. The difference is intention. And if he is doing no contact with you, not to disappear, but to find his way back, then the bravest thing you can do is to stop running and stand still. When two people go quiet, it's not always the end. Sometimes it's the echo before understanding. When someone you love pulls away, goes quiet, your nervous system often goes into panic mode. And if you're here, you're probably asking yourself, what if he's also doing no contact with me? Not because he's trying to hurt you, but because he's overwhelmed, detached, possibly protecting something fragile inside himself. Let's unpack what's really happening, not just on the surface, but beneath it, in the emotional systems that drive human connection and conflict. One of the most misunderstood experiences in a relationship is emotional flooding. It's when our body becomes so overwhelmed by stress, often triggered by conflict, rejection, or even too much intensity, that we lose access to our rational mind. For men especially, research shows that during relational stress, heart rates can spike above 100 beats per minute. That's not love shutting down. That's the nervous system calling for emergency triage. And sometimes silence is that triage. Aha, insight number one. Silence isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's nervous system regulation. When both partners go into no contact, it can feel like a cruel standoff, but often it's two people trying to self-soothe. They don't know how to ask for what they need, so they ask for space instead, indirectly, silently. The mistake we make is believing that one person has to be the chaser, the fixer, the explainer, that love requires immediate resolution, but genuine connection doesn't come from emotional chasing. It comes from emotional safety. This is where bids for connection become crucial. A bid can be as subtle as a text, a sigh, or a memory shared on social media. And when someone doesn't respond to our bids, we feel invisible, or worse, unloved. But here's the second aha insight. Your worth is not measured by how quickly someone responds to your pain. What if his silence isn't punishment, but paralysis? What if he's flooded too, unable to respond to your bids, not because he doesn't care, but because he's emotionally maxed out? If your instinct is to send long texts, explain your side, or overanalyze his behavior, I invite you to pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to restore connection or trying to control his response to my pain? Now, here's a behavioral, inside a healing loop you can use. Behavior, you feel abandoned, so you send a long message explaining everything you wish he understood. Insight, you're trying to self-regulate by using his response as your emotional thermometer. Healing, you pause instead, you name your feeling, I feel panic because I need reassurance, and you give that to yourself first. Then, only from calm, you decide what action aligns with dignity and clarity. That's not detachment. That's self-leadership. Let's talk about love maps, Gottman's term for how well we know our partner's inner world. If his internal landscape is unfamiliar to you, his stress patterns, triggers, or how he processes emotion, you'll likely misinterpret the silence. You'll personalize it. But people often default to the coping patterns wired into them long before you ever met. Now, if conflict was present before the silence, and especially if harsh criticism or defensiveness dominated your communication, it's likely the four horsemen were already riding in: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Stonewalling, in particular, is a classic shutdown mechanism. It happens when one or both partners become so emotionally overwhelmed, they literally check out. But stonewalling isn't just silence, it's unregulated silence. Conscious detachment, on the other hand, is silence with a purpose. It's stepping away, not to abandon, but to recenter. Here's where we reframe a toxic pattern. You may believe that over-explaining brings clarity. In truth, over-explaining often reflects an anxious need for control. You flood your partner with words hoping they'll finally understand and stay, but instead they feel emotionally cornered. The healing reframe is this: you don't need to earn love through emotional labor. Self-soothing isn't just something we ask of our partners, it's something we practice ourselves. It's breathing, it's walking, it's grounding. And when you do this, something powerful happens. You stop demanding from them what you haven't yet given yourself. So if he is also doing no contact, don't assume he's gone. Don't assume he's healed or done or never cared. Just do this. Tend to your nervous system. Lead yourself gently. And when or if contact resumes, you'll meet it not from fear, but from emotional integrity. Because that's what love asks of us. It's not to cling, not to chase, but to choose connection from a place of inner steadiness. Her name was Maya, 34, successful on paper, the kind of woman who could lead a meeting of 30 people but fall apart in the silence of one unanswered text. It had been 12 days since her boyfriend Daniel stopped replying. No fight, just a slow pullback that became a full stop. The last thing he said was, "I just need space." And like so many people do when they hear that, Maya gave him space, but not in her mind. There she filled every second with explanations, drafted messages at 1:14 a.m. and again at 6:02 the next morning, read them aloud, rewrote them, deleted them, then rewrote them again. She imagined him reading every word with a softened heart, finally realizing what they had, finally seeing how much she was willing to fight. But the messages never left her phone, and neither did the ache. She wasn't just missing him, she was missing who she thought she had to be to keep him agreeable, accommodating, available, always available. There was one moment, small but sharp. When everything shifted, she was standing in her kitchen, barefoot on cold tile, rereading a message she had typed for the 5th time that week. It said, "I just want to understand what happened. Please don't leave me hanging like this. I deserve at least a response." She hovered her thumb over the blue arrow. Her chest was tight, but then something unusual happened. She paused, just long enough to notice the sound of the refrigerator humming, just long enough to hear herself breathing, just long enough for the smallest voice inside to whisper, "What if your silence is the boundary you've been waiting for him to set?" She deleted the message, not out of pride, not out of anger, but because she realized she wasn't reaching out for clarity. She was reaching out for comfort, and it had never come from him, not in a way that stayed. In that moment, she saw herself, not as someone abandoned, but as someone who had abandoned herself over and over to keep a love that asked her to disappear a little more each day. That was her mirror realization. I was never just asking for him to come back. I was asking for me to matter. She didn't block him. She didn't post cryptic quotes. She didn't send a dramatic final message. She simply breathed, put the phone down, and made tea, as though she was worthy of peace, even in the not knowing. That's the thing no one tells you about no contact. It's not just about waiting. It's about waking up. And maybe he'd reach out someday, maybe he wouldn't. But either way, Maya didn't lose. She found her center in the very space she once feared. The moment she stopped chasing his silence, she began hearing her own voice again. In the face of silence, especially when someone you love pulls away without closure, your nervous system begins to search for safety. Often that safety looks like reaching out, overanalyzing, or over-arguing. But what if he's also doing no contact? Then the most powerful thing you can do isn't to decode him, it's to come home to yourself. Let's walk through a few tools, rooted in the research I've spent my life studying. Tools that don't just help you wait it out, but help you recenter, re-regulate, and reclaim your peace. First, the 60-second pause. This is deceptively simple, but neurologically powerful. When your impulse is to send a message, respond to a memory, or spiral in thought, stop. Just 60 seconds. Put the phone down, plant your feet, and breathe in deeply. Exhale longer than you inhale. This pattern slows down your heart rate, activating your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural calming mechanism. We found in our research at the Gottman Institute that emotional flooding, when your system becomes too overwhelmed to function, can take up to 20 minutes to reset. But even one full minute of intentional pause can interrupt the loop of reactivity. It's not avoidance, it's self-regulation. You can repeat this phrase during that minute. I don't need to respond right now. I need to respond wisely. So I can name it to tame it. This tool, coined by Dr. Dan Siegel and echoed in our research, is about emotional labeling. When you feel that lump in your throat, the heat in your chest, or the pit in your stomach, just don't override it. Identify it. Say, this is loneliness, or this is grief, or even this is the fear of being unchosen. Labeling the emotion gives your brain a sense of order. It turns a chaotic inner storm into something you can relate to rather than be consumed by. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic and reasoning, activates when you label. Suddenly, you are not drowning in the emotion, you are observing it. This single act builds emotional intelligence. Try this tonight. Ask yourself, what did I give today that I didn't receive in return? Then write it down. It could be patience, affection, understanding, energy, effort. Don't judge it, just name it. Then ask, did I offer these things because I wanted to connect or because I was afraid to lose it? This journal practice helps you see patterns. It shifts you from scarcity, from thinking you're being ignored because you're not enough, into clarity about where you may be abandoning yourself. The sacred tool, the 3-1 internal repair method, every time you notice an emotional trigger, the ache of not hearing from him, the need to over-explain, the urge to check his status, offer yourself 3 self-modulations. This is a form of internal repair. For example, trigger, he hasn't responded in 3 days. Self-sabotations, it makes sense that this hurts. I am still worthy of love, even in this silence. I don't need to prove anything to be chosen. Our research shows that in lasting relationships, it takes roughly 5 positive interactions to counteract one negative. That same logic applies inwardly. Self-gratification isn't self-pity, it's psychological hygiene. If you're not offering these affirming thoughts to yourself, you'll unconsciously demand them from someone who may not be capable of giving them. These tools may feel small, but practiced consistently, they help rebuild your inner love map, your understanding of your own emotional landscape. And that's the most important relationship you'll ever have. So if he is doing no contact, just do this. Return to ritual. Don't fill the silence with panic. Fill it with presence, not to win him back, but to never lose you again. I want to speak to the woman who feels invisible right now, who's been staring at a phone screen that doesn't light up, who replays old conversations in her head, trying to pinpoint the moment it all started slipping away. You didn't just lose connection, you lost something in yourself too. The part that felt seen, heard, chosen. And maybe you're asking yourself the question that brought you here, what if he's also doing no contact with me? Let me tell you something that might hurt first, and then set you free. Even if he is, that doesn't mean he's healed, or cruel. It means he's human, possibly flooded, possibly disconnected from himself, not just you. You see, when someone goes quiet, your nervous system often screams louder. It says, fix this, say something, explain yourself, be more loving, be less needy, be anything but forgotten. And you try. You over-infer. You send texts you regret. You analyze his last words like scripture. You rewrite the breakup in your head as if a better version will make him come back. But I want you to pause here right now and hear this. His silence is not your punishment. It's not a verdict on your value. And it's not your job to decode someone who won't speak. What if, stay with me, his silence has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with his own emotional capacity? There's a difference between detachment and abandonment. One says, I need space to hear myself again. The other says, you're not worth showing up for. And when you're in a vulnerable place, they can feel like the same thing. But here's your mirror truth. What if you weren't too much just unprotected? What if all those big feelings were never wrong? They were just waiting for a relationship big enough to hold them. That's what no contact can become. Not a waiting room for their return, but a sanctuary for your return. The goosebump moment for so many of the clients I've sat with comes when they realize this. The silence they feared was abandonment, was actually the first moment they could finally hear themselves again. That's when the shift begins, when you stop seeing the silence as rejection and start seeing it as redirection. Away from begging for crumbs and back toward the feast of your own self-worth. So now I want to offer you a transformation statement to carry forward, not just into this season, but into every space where love lives. I don't chase connection. I create it within me, and I allow it to be mirrored by those who are ready. If he is doing no contact, let it be. Not as a test, not as a game, but as a return to your breath, your strength, your clarity. You are not invisible here. You are becoming undeniable to yourself. And that is where true love begins. Earlier, we explored a contradiction that many carry quietly. The belief that love means always reaching out, always explaining, always holding on. That silence means loss. That detachment means indifference. But now you know something deeper. Sometimes silence isn't abandonment. It's a nervous system trying to breathe. It's a heart asking for space, not out of disinterest, but out of overload. And if he is also doing no contact, then maybe it's not a rejection of you, but a reflection of his own limits. You've spent enough time trying to be heard by someone who isn't listening. The shift now is subtle, sacred, from waiting to witnessing. Not him, you. This is where your healing lives, not in reaction, not in performing, not in proving, but in choosing your own voice again. That woman who once begged, explained, chased, she's not weak, she's waking up. And you are no longer someone needing to be rescued. You are someone who remembers her value in the quiet. Stillnesses and silence, it's where your clarity lives now.